Hey there, students. I promised you an update today, and so here I am in my car giving you just that. So I wanted to tell you what's been going on in the Smith household. I every now and then get an email back from blood work that says, "Hey, Mrs. Smith, it's time to remind you that you had cancer 20 years ago and that we saw something weird in your blood and we need to do some testing." So for the past 3 days, I've been doing testing and doctor's visits and masking up and doing all the fun things that you do to go into a medical office right now. And everything is fine, but my schedule is blown. So I've had 3 days of not getting to everything I need to look at your essays. But I needed to get with you today, and we're going to talk briefly during our last Google Meet, but that's not what the purpose of that one is. So I wanted to get to this first. Number one, there's a lot of you worrying about peer review grade that you received. And those that are worried all have one thing in common. You graded other people's essays and did a bang up job doing it. The problem is I can't know who graded yours to give them credit for doing that kind of a job unless you turn in the essays that other people graded for you. So you made a 50% because I could see that definitely you had checked other people's work, but you have not turned in the essays that were graded by someone else for you, and they're not getting credit because you haven't done your job. Plain and simple. So I need you to go back to the peer editing assignment and upload the 2 copies of the essays that someone else graded for you. So let's say I'm talking about my own daughter, Haley, and she's already turned this in, so it's just giving you a name. She graded 2 other people's, did a good job, told them, yay, nice, you did this, you need to work on this. And then she came back to her own files and saw that, I don't know, let's say her 2 friends did it. Lillian and Sophie graded hers, and she could see that because it said peer reviewed by Lillian, peer reviewed by Sophie. So those 2 essays she had to upload to the peer review assignment so that I could see that Lillian had graded something and that Sophie had graded something. But I can't know those things unless you turn them in. So that's number one. The next thing is about your My Antonia quiz. It's coming. I have to put some finishing touches on it. Hopefully it's done. I was going to say by noon, probably 1 o'clock. It is open book, so if you have read, you should not have trouble with it. If you have not read, then you're going to have trouble with it. Can't really do much for you there. We are coming to a slam bang finish for the year, I think. So the next thing is for your essay. I am getting to the 7th period as quick as I can. 5th period, most of yours are up. 6th period, most of yours are up. If you don't have feedback and you have a question, I will look at it for you. The number one problem that I'm seeing, hands down, is not having an adequate thesis statement and not having adequate sub-theses. And these will kill your grade next year, especially on those DBQs you keep hearing about, which are discussion-based question essays for Mr. Rogers and Mr. Karros. The importance of a thesis statement. So many of you have a thesis statement that says, in these 3 books, there is innocence, or innocence is portrayed, or innocence is important in these 3 books. That is not an opinion. That is a fact. What is your opinion on innocence? Have you learned anything about innocence? Is it important? Why is it important? What does it do for a person to either ruin or protect innocence of others? That's an opinion. It's not just innocence is in these 3 books, or innocence is important, period. It needs to be why is it important, okay? Secondly, your sub-thesis cannot be there's a lot of innocence in To Kill a Mockingbird. That's maybe a quantitative opinion, that a lot versus a little, but that's not the kind of opinion we can support with text evidence. That's the kind of opinion that we can only support with data. We would have to be able to count how many times the word innocence or the such is listed. So it would be a statistical answer, and that's not what we're looking for. Your sub-thesis can be that it mentions To Kill a Mockingbird and innocence, but it needs to be, what did the kids learn in To Kill a Mockingbird about innocence that is helpful to the rest of the world? What did they learn? And then prove that with your evidence. So that once you get the sub-thesis in place, then the conclusion sentences will drop into place as well, because you're just simply rewording the sub-thesis after you've proved it. Okay, but those are the biggest problems I'm seeing. And it also means it makes it harder for you to explain your opinion, because your opinion is there's a lot. And if your opinion is just there's a lot, well, then you're constantly feeling like you're repeating yourself in your explanation. Am I right? Okay. So the biggest thing, especially if I've already given you feedback on your rough draft assignment, which you go into the rough draft, even if I didn't give comments that you can see just by the grade, there are comments just like you saw on those peer-reviewed pieces. You'll see bubbles in red and bubbles in green in the side. Mainly they're in red because I don't have a whole lot of time to point out everything to you. If I have pointed out that you have a poor thesis statement, you need to make the assumption that the rest of them in your essay are poor. If I have pointed out that your formatting for your evidence was incorrect, you have to make the assumption that that's the same way through the rest of your essay. I am not going to grade every word of your essay on your rough draft. I'm not your editor. I am giving you hints on what you need to fix, and you have to get used to that. Next year, we will in your composition class, yes, we will go over rough drafts, but not in detail. These things are supposed to be what you have learned this year. And a lot of you have neglected one of two things if you're still really struggling, really struggling with your essay, and not just because you haven't put time into it this time. You've been ignoring me on getting the reading done this year, and you've been scooting by with just enough annotation and learning things in seminar. The other part is that you really, even if you are reading, your comprehension is not where it needs to be, and you're not looking into maybe improving that. Once you get that hurdle crossed, then the second part of it is are you paying attention to what I'm asking in the essays? And that's hard, because I can impart knowledge to you. You are the ones that have to take it in. Okay. You are responsible on your final essay for all of the things that I have mentioned, even if I have not given you personal feedback. If you need more personal feedback, or once you get some feedback from me today, if you need a longer time to fix what you need, I've told you how to do that. Your parent has to email me, not you, your parent, to get extra time on your essay. I am not opposed to essays being turned in on Friday, because I know you have algebra and history tomorrow and you're all working on a history paper. But you need to think about why maybe you're doing that to turn in on Friday. Is it because you had to wait on me, or is it because you didn't put full effort the first time? Because I'm seeing a lot of rough drafts that were still outlines. They were not even complete sentences. And if I need to tell you that an outline is different than a rough draft as far as complete sentences, you have missed a lot of what I've said this year. So this is I have had very little time this week because I've been investigating my health, which seems to be fine, except for losing all the time this week. But you need to be the ones on top of your essay anyway. That's why the note was in your pod this morning. I am not your reason for not understanding your essay at this point. Those of you that have asked for help, I'll accept one. I think I've answered back from yesterday. Um, there's a couple of fine points of completion on an essay that we're just not going to worry about, and that would be contractions. You shouldn't have any contractions in your essay. But I do need you to take out all personal pronouns. If you've started with a rhetorical question